My daughter asked me to vacate my own bedroom so her husband's parents could stay there. 12 hours later, their world began to unravel. The day before they arrived, I was sorting laundry on the corner of my bed when Claire appeared in the doorway. Arms folded tightly, her expression already set. She skipped any greeting. "Mom, you need to pack your bags," she said flatly. I looked up, still holding a small sock, and asked calmly, "Where exactly am I supposed to go?" She sighed as if my question was unreasonable. "A hotel? Benjamin's parents are coming, and I won't have them on the couch. You get it, don't you?" Before I could respond, Benjamin cut in smoothly. "Your staying here creates unnecessary tension. You're not really helping out anymore." His mother, Evelyn, strolled into the room without hesitation, inspecting the space like she was evaluating furniture. "It's a bit cramped," she remarked, "but at least it's quiet. I can't deal with any musty odors." Her husband, Richard, chuckled lightly. At a certain age, people should understand when it's time to step aside. I stood there, suddenly a visitor in my own home, watching them arrange my departure as if I weren't present. Claire had clearly planned this. I'd overheard her friend Tanya's voice on speaker before, offering pointed suggestions. "Your mom still lives with you? That looks so dependent." Benjamin's family came from a different social circle, and Claire was determined to impress them. Benjamin resented me not because of my age, but because I saw through his polished stories. I'd managed accounts for my late husband's construction business, and for neighbors who trusted me. I noticed when figures didn't add up in Benjamin's ventures. This house purchased through years of sacrifice and hard work by my husband and me now felt like it belonged to someone else, as they decided my fate. Something shifted inside me. I realized how easily I'd become an inconvenience, how motherhood had turned into something disposable. My hands trembled as I packed my old suitcase with the faulty zipper. Benjamin watched from the doorway. "Make sure you check out on schedule. Don't create any awkwardness for my family." The hotel room carried that sharp scent of industrial cleaner over faded carpet. I set my bag down, sat on the edge of the bed, and stared at my hands, the same ones that had rocked Claire through illnesses, signed important papers, and stretched every dollar. These hands had built stability for my family. Now they shook in a stranger's room. I thought about my husband's passing and how I'd chosen to stay independent. Keeping this home as a safe place for Claire, I'd welcomed them in when they said they needed time to save. I believed it was temporary and rooted in love. What I discovered in the early morning hours would force everyone to face the truths we'd all been avoiding. Part 2 word count, 458, around midnight. Claire texted, "Come back early tomorrow. Don't linger around the house, they'll feel uneasy." No concern for how I was doing, just instructions. I cried quietly into the pillow, then pulled myself together. Old habits kicked in. I opened the thin folder I always carried, filled with important papers. One document stood out, a personal guarantee I'd signed years ago for Benjamin's business, until they got established. A recent bank notice mentioned an upcoming review. As dawn broke, I reached out to my longtime neighbor, Darlene. "They moved me out of my own room for his parents," I told her. Her response was firm. "You're not disposable, and anyone who treats you that way is showing their true colors." That gave me strength. I called Mr. Whitaker at the bank, who knew me from years of handling our mortgage. I asked what would happen if I withdrew my guarantee. He explained it would prompt a full review, potentially freezing credit lines and exposing any underlying issues, though it wouldn't destroy the business instantly. Next, I contacted attorney Marcia Klein, who had managed my husband's estate. "Are you prepared to stop protecting them?" she asked. I said yes. For the next few hours, I carefully reviewed old emails, receipts, and invoices Benjamin had once asked me to hold. Nothing fabricated, just records that told their own story. By morning, I signed the withdrawal request. Mr. Whitaker confirmed it was processed, and Benjamin would be informed. Claire texted again, asking when I'd return, reminding me not to make noise. I left it unanswered. That small act of not responding felt like the first real boundary I'd set in years. When I arrived back at the house with Darlene's help, the atmosphere had already shifted. A scheduled payment hadn't cleared. Benjamin was on edge, snapping at people on the phone. As I walked in, another call came through. "We need more documentation effective immediately." The voice said loudly enough for everyone to hear. Benjamin's face went pale. Evelyn shot me a sharp look. Claire whispered, "What have you done?" I replied simply, "I stopped holding everything together for everyone else." The room grew tense. No one shouted, but the illusion of control was cracking. They had assumed I'd remain silent and accommodating forever. But as the consequences continued to unfold over the following days, they would learn just how much had been built on shaky foundations. Part 3. Word count. 461. The business relied heavily on cash flow and timing. Freezing the credit line created immediate pressure. Partners began asking questions. Invoices that should have been handled smoothly stayed outstanding. Benjamin tried to maintain his usual confidence, but the cracks showed. I didn't gloat or interfere further. I simply stepped back and let procedures run their course. Evelyn and Richard, who had dismissed me so casually, now watched their son struggle. Claire called me more frequently, her voice losing its edge of certainty. She described partners pulling support and employees raising concerns. She came to see me at Darlene's. "I thought choosing this life would make everything stable," she admitted, sounding like the uncertain girl she once was. "I believed you were the one holding me back." The words stung, but they also brought clarity. She'd prioritized image over honesty, I explained. I wasn't seeking revengely, refusing to keep covering for problems I'd noticed long ago. I'd taught her about responsibility and numbers at our kitchen table, but she'd chosen to ignore the warnings. Benjamin avoided eye contact when our paths crossed. His anger had faded into exhaustion and quiet calculation. Official notices arrived steadily, requests for records, audit announcements, clarification deadlines. The company that once moved quickly now stumbled. I moved into a modest apartment shortly after, simple, peaceful. With morning light and no lingering memories in the walls, Claire eventually came to me again, exhausted and emotional. "I was wrong," she said through tears. "Everything is falling apart." I asked gently whether she regretted hurting me or simply feared losing her lifestyle. Her silence answered for her. I told her the guarantee was permanently withdrawn. I wouldn't return to being the invisible support system. But I had set up a small trust for Noah, protected so it couldn't be misused. "This is for him," I said firmly. The final confrontation at the family table would test whether any of them truly understood what respect and accountability meant. Part 4. Word count. 447. Dinner that evening felt staged. Evelyn sat in my usual chair by the window. Benjamin stood at the head of the table, trying to project control. Claire nervously arranged things that didn't need arranging. "Mom," Claire said eventually, "could you apologize to Evelyn and Richard?" "Just to ease the tension," Benjamin added. "Say it. You're making my family uncomfortable." The request landed heavily. They wanted submission, not genuine resolution. Evelyn spoke with polished condescension. "We've heard about situations like yours, Anne, older woman relying on her daughter. It's not how we handle things in our family." I looked at little Noah, who reached for my hand under the table and whispered not to cry. That moment strengthened me. I stood up calmly. "I'm not apologizing," I said evenly. "I didn't live off anyone. I kept this house stable through difficult times. I managed the finances so others could thrive. My presence reminds you of debts and truths you'd rather forget." Evelyn tried to interrupt, calling me dramatic. Benjamin scoffed. I turned to Claire. "You see me as a burden because facing where you came from is uncomfortable. That's not my burden to carry." I picked up my coat. Noah hugged me tightly. I kissed his head and walked out with steady steps. Behind me, the house held people who had mistaken control for strength. In the weeks that followed, more partners distanced themselves. Projects stalled. The audit deepened. Fear spread faster than their previous bravado. They hadn't fallen because of me. They fell because the structure was flawed from the start. I had simply stopped being the support, holding it upright. Claire's later visits showed growth mixed with regret. She began to see that true dignity doesn't come from proximity to fragile power. In the end, I reclaimed something far more valuable than any victory over them. Part 5. Word count. 438. I didn't seek revenge. I simply stopped hiding uncomfortable realities. The business faced natural repercussions from years of shortcuts. Benjamin's charm and fast talk no longer sufficed when documentation was required. Claire's apology came, without grand gestures, just quiet exhaustion and acknowledgement. She realized she'd traded substance for appearances, and when the facade cracked, support vanished. I reminded her that love shouldn't require erasing yourself. I loved her, but I also loved the version of myself